It's wild how Genesis suddenly shifts gears, isn't it? We go from gigantic, world shaking stories creation, flood, Babel's chaos, and then, bam, we're zoomed in on one guy, Abram. It feels almost cinematic.
Totally. The spotlight just swings onto Abram, and suddenly the entire future of humanity's story seems to rest on this one, rather ordinary man and his family. There's something so personal about it after all that epic stuff.
And what's fascinating is that God's method changes completely. It's not about fixing humanity in one massive action anymore. It's about shaping a single relationship. That's such a dramatic shift in the narrative style.
Yeah, it kind of makes you wonder why God would take that approach. Like, what's so special about starting with just one person instead of a whole crowd?
So, the story kicks off with God telling Abram, leave your country, your family, everything familiar, and just go somewhere I'll show you. Oh, and by the way, I'll make a great nation out of you.
That's such a huge leap of faith. Imagine being 75, settled in life, and suddenly you're packing up all your things to follow this intangible promise. No map, no details, just go.
It almost sounds reckless, but maybe that's the point. Abram isn't being asked for a five-step plan, just raw trust. And honestly, most of us would hesitate in his sandals.
And yet, he does it. That willingness to step into the unknown is why Abraham is such a central figure, not for his perfection, but for his guts, really.
But the story doesn't let Abram savor his obedience for long. He finally gets to the land God promised, and what's waiting for him? A famine. Like, talk about bad timing.
It's almost comical, isn't it? You trust, you uproot your life, and immediately you run into disaster. I think it makes Abram relatable. Real faith doesn't mean instant reward.
And his reaction is so human. He panics, heads for Egypt, and then tells Sarai to pretend to be his sister because he's scared. That's not superhero stuff. That's regular people stuff.
Honestly, that awkward Egypt story, it's messy, even embarrassing. But maybe that's what makes these ancient stories still feel so fresh. They're honest about fear and failure.
Thinking about how Abram handles things in Egypt, he's not some flawless saint. That's one of the things I love about these stories. He's stumbling through, just like anyone else.
Exactly. Instead of hiding his mistakes, the text puts them on display. Abram's not fearless or always wise. He's complicated, scared, and sometimes he digs himself into trouble.
And that's actually pretty comforting. If someone as important as Abraham can mess up and still matter to the story, maybe there's hope for the rest of us.
We tend to expect faith stories to be about unwavering trust, but here it's obvious that doubt and even poor choices are part of the journey.
Let's dig into that word covenant. It gets thrown around a lot, but in Abram's world, it meant something serious. It wasn't just a handshake, it was life and death binding.
Right. In the ancient world, a covenant was even stronger than a contract. It came with rituals, signs, and sometimes even a meal or sacrifice. It was about belonging and big promises.
And God's covenant with Abram isn't just about land or a big family. It's about blessing something that extends way beyond their lifetimes.
It's interesting that the whole world's hope, according to this story, is somehow tied into this ancient agreement between God and one old couple.
Still, there's this glaring problem. The promise depends on descendants, but Abram and Sarai are both elderly. Years go by, and there's no child. That kind of waiting must have been agonizing.
That's the kicker, isn't it? You have this dramatic promise, but nothing happens for decades. I can't blame them for starting to wonder if maybe they misunderstood.
It's so relatable. How many times do we get impatient when things don't work out on our timeline, especially when we think we're doing all the right things?
Exactly. The story really captures what it feels like when hope just drags on, and you start looking for shortcuts.
That desperation leads Sarai to her own solution, giving Hagar, her Egyptian servant, to Abram. It was a custom back then, but it's still a tough story to read.
There's so much tension built into it. Hagar becomes pregnant, and suddenly, the household is a powder keg, jealousy, resentment, power struggles. It all kind of spirals.
It shows that even well-meant attempts to hurry up a promise can introduce a whole new layer of pain. Everyone's trying to make things work, but it just gets messier.
The emotion in that part of the story is so raw. You can feel the heartbreak, especially for Hagar, who ends up running away because she's treated so harshly.
But then there's this almost cinematic moment. Hagar alone in the wilderness, desperate, and an angel shows up. It's like the story slows down just for her.
That really gets me. Hagar's not the main character. Yet, here's God, seeing her pain, promising her son will become a great nation. It's so unexpected and tender.
It's a reminder that the story isn't just about the heroes. Even those hurt by the big plans get noticed. I think it's one of the most compassionate moments in Genesis.
And it highlights how messy human plans can become, but also that no one is invisible, even when life feels out of control.
As the story goes on, God steps in again this time, making the covenant official. He changes Abram's name to Abraham and Sarai to Sarah. It's like a reboot for both of them.
It's almost as if God is saying, you're starting fresh. This promise is bigger than your old story. And the new names really hammer that home: Abraham, father of a multitude, and Sarah, princess.
And then there's circumcision, a physical, permanent sign of this new identity. It's not just about belief, it's a lived, embodied commitment.
It's pretty powerful, actually. That mark becomes a constant reminder, even when circumstances seem to say otherwise.
Here's where the story shifts from heavy to almost comical. God announces that Sarah, at 90, will have a son. Abraham's reaction? He just bursts out laughing. You can't blame him.
And that laughter is so human. It basically becomes the theme. Isaac's name even means he laughs. There's something beautiful about hope and skepticism living together in that moment.
It's like the story wants us to admit that faith isn't always solemn. It's sometimes full of disbelief, surprise, and even a bit of absurdity.
Exactly. That moment captures the messiness of trust, especially when what's promised seems truly impossible.
Looking back, the story of Abraham isn't about pure, unshakable faith. It's about wrestling, doubting, and still moving forward even after big missteps.
That's the part that makes it so relatable for me. Faith here is a long slog, not a finish line. And that's a lot closer to real life than we sometimes admit.
And then, the covenant's foundation is God's faithfulness, not Abraham's perfection. That's actually a relief because the story keeps moving even when the people stumble.
It's a different kind of hope, one rooted in the idea that you don't have to have it all together for the story to keep unfolding.
What really sticks with me is how God delivers on the promise, not through clever human fixes, but through what looks impossible: a child from an old, barren couple.
There's a real sense that the story is saying, even dead ends aren't the end. It reframes what's possible, and sometimes the best outcomes come out of situations that seem totally hopeless.
And that sets the tone for the whole relationship between God and this family. It's going to be unpredictable, difficult, but always moving towards something bigger.
Yeah, and it leaves us with this open-ended question. What does it look like to trust, not in our own schemes, but in the possibility of something bigger than we can plan?
Of course, Abraham's journey is far from over. Before the celebration of Isaac's birth, there's more drama to come: cities like Sodom and Gomorrah, and the infamous test of faith.
That's what makes these stories so gripping. They never really settle down. Just when you think the promise is safe, another challenge appears. Keeps you turning the pages, for sure.
And honestly, it's reassuring. Even the heroes have to keep learning, keep wrestling. The journey of faith is never just a straight line.
Exactly. It's a reminder that the real story is in the journey itself, the ups, the downs, and all the unexpected twists along the way.